right. Well, welcome again, everybody, to our first meeting of the park for March, and we'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I had a great saying on my agenda, of course, that I left at school. So let's move on to have a seat or stand, whichever your pleasure. Some happy thoughts or any associated dollars that go with happy thoughts are welcome.
I had my shoulder surgery 4 weeks ago today.
Yes.
And so here's a check I wrote back in December for $150.
Oh,
Wow.
very nice.
And I'm healing well.
Thank you. That's wonderful. You were one of the motivators in my mind to record today's meeting, because I knew you last time you said that you hadn't been able to drive. Yeah.
But I'm driving.
Okay. Well, as long as it's one-handed and 2 feet and not one-handed and 1 foot. Well, I don't know.
Standard.
Yeah. All right.
Okay.
Insert. Yes, please.
Happy moment. I've really enjoyed. I've been doing some agate hunting lately. Had some nice agates. And the other thing is I'm happy my wife Kathy is here, and she and I are both baseball card collectors. So anyway, we'll be talking about baseball cards shortly.
Wonderful.
So here we go.
Thank you. Thank you.
I have $20 for, it's happy but it's sad. My grandfather passed away this weekend, but he was 90 years old.
Oh.
And he was at home. He just went to sleep and then didn't wake up. And so anyway, RIP to my grandpa, who is now just resting and
Thank
happy.
you.
We should all be so lucky.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think I may have shared with you earlier, my grandmother back in Oklahoma passed at 103.
Oh
Wow.
my goodness.
It was due to complications to COVID.
At 103.
103, yeah. So, yeah, and the same kind of thing, passed away in her sleep and all of that. So, yeah. I'm sure you've got great memories and
Yeah.
all of those. I'm going to share, I've been sharing about baby Julian. Julian is 5 weeks old now, and yesterday we got a picture of him of him wearing his Wisconsin Badger Letterman's jacket that we got him at his birth. So, yeah, good times. And we actually this weekend planned out our trip. Hi there. Planned out our trip to visit Wisconsin in late June. So, very good. It is sure nice to see everybody here today. Awesome.
Took the day off to be able to make it here.
Well, appreciate that.
Well, my happy story of the day
Yes.
is that back in August, my car that I had owned for 20 years and had over 300,000 miles on it, the timing belt broke, and I bought a new car, and that was great. But my dad insisted on having the car towed to his garage because he was convinced that it could be fixed. And so he and I finally made time to work on it together, and we put a new timing belt on it, and it actually runs. So it now has somehow survived that, and now I've got to figure out what to do with it.
How many miles?
About 315,000.
Okay.
That is amazing. That is amazing. Other thoughts, or
Well, I'll throw in
please do.
20. The next generation of our family is getting vaccinated. The nurse in Maine has made it. The school teacher in California has her first shot this week. I've had my first shot, and Denise is still waiting for the phone call from Curry Health.
Awesome. Yeah, yeah. It's great. I think the latest I saw was 21% of adults have been vaccinated. So many of you standing right here. Awesome. Who hasn't been to Mystic Donuts yet, huh? Well,
You're missing out
I
if you
hear-
haven't. There's some happy dollars
yes,
just because
thank you.
we got beyond the donut shop and back into building houses, so that's good.
That
Yes.
is good. Are they all rented out?
No,
Oh, no.
I refuse to start a list until they're done.
Okay.
Stressful.
Okay.
I need that kind of stress in my
How
life.
many will there be?
Right now, there's going to be 3 this spring, and then I'll start 4 more this summer.
Because we have, a potential new, Tom Denning. What does he
New
do?
principal.
Principal.
Oh,
Who's going to
really?
be needing a place while they try to find a place.
Yeah, and that's the whole point of our places.
Yeah.
And
So,
potentially a new superintendent.
And I was
too.
going to say, and potentially a new superintendent in the same, and there's no rentals, so
right. Well,
get on
that's
it.
where that's our,
Right, we need more.
so
They won't start till next year,
To
right?
July 1, yeah.
July 1.
that actually could be perfect.
Oh, good. Yeah,
They will be done by. They'll
we'll
be done
drive
by.
them by. Yeah, okay, cool. Thank you.
And just related to that as a heads up, today or by the end of this week we'll be making the offer for the principal position, and then Monday night, if you don't have anything else to do, the board is sponsoring a community forum at 4:30 to 5:30 at the high school, where you can meet the 2 finalists for the superintendent job and supply any comments then that the board will consider as they make their final
Do you
selection.
get to vote too?
No, I'm not part of the process at
No,
all.
I mean the people that show up, can they?
Well, they
circle-
get to share their comments, yes. Ultimately, the board gets to make the tough choice.
Electoral college.
That's right.
There
Yeah.
you go.
But you can share how you feel
There we go.
on Facebook and Twitter.
Oh yeah, no thanks.
Any other comments, questions? Dave, any announcements from the district or?
Well, yes, President Tim, fellow Rotarians and guests, I'm happy to be fully vaccinated and back here. Port Orford is still meeting virtually, but Brookings is meeting at Blue Water Cafe Tuesday noons and an occasional social. So you're very welcome to do that. Incoming in Port Orford will be Mike Hewitt again, and Alan Niederfire is staying at Brookings, and you're going to decide who's coming next, I hope.
Right, I'm the person of record at this point, and so
Yeah.
we'll continue that as
District
well.
Governor Jerry is anxious to have president-elects as far ahead as you want to name them. Succession planning is important so that we can continue to rotate.
Very good, thank you, thank you. All right, as far as other announcements, next week, we'll have because we had a couple people that had other community meetings on the 3rd and 4th Wednesdays a month, I've moved the social now to the 2nd. So next week we'll have a social online event. And then the next week we'll have a meeting hopefully here. And then during spring break we'll have a board meeting. And then the fifth Wednesday social at the end of the month. And so we're getting that new rotation of meeting at least twice a month here as the weather improves, and knock on wood, if we have to make a change of plans, then we will. But we'll try to be here as much as we can outside.
So we will be here at noon on the 17th.
That's the plan, yes, sir.
Is it possible to have some corned beef and cabbage available?
Oh, that's a
Maybe
good
some
idea.
green beer?
Oh, that's
beer?
Green beer on St. Patrick's
That's what I
Day.
thought he said.
well. Let me throw that out there, either for people to bring their own, or if we want to try to do somewhat of a potluck. That's a great idea. Of beer, yes. Green beer. Green,
We're gonna make
green
donuts,
donuts.
right?
And,
Green donuts.
all right. Well, I know the reason you're all here today was not because we haven't seen everybody in a long
No,
time.
just food
It was because of
coloring.
Jerry.
No.
So, no, so I'm real pleased that Jerry and Kathy have stepped up to be our program today. And so, without further ado,
Oh, good. Thank you.
President of the Future, Jerry Herbage.
Well, I appreciate too that there's a lot of people here. That's really nice. It's always great to be out at the park. Speaking of park, well, let me ask you this question, because I need your help on this question. So if a guy leaves home and then he makes 3 consecutive left-hand turns and then starts heading towards home again, but comes across 2 masked men, who are they? Anybody have any idea? Who are they? Okay. The answer is the catcher and the umpire. See, starts at home, makes 3 left-hand
Oh
turns.
my gosh.
So we're talking about baseball today. Okay. I could also ask you the difference between a pickpocket and an umpire.
What
And
is
I'll
that?
just tell you what the difference is. One steals watches and one watches steals. Okay. So we're going to talk about baseball cards, and how many have any interest in baseball? Are any of you just kind of not baseball people at all? Okay, if you're not a baseball person at all, bear with me, but for those who don't like baseball, I brought a couple dahlias, and it's really an interesting story about the dahlias because you know they really only start growing like in April and May. But what I did is I grow a lot of dahlias and I threw them at the end of the street, and for some reason beginning like say November, December, they started growing, which is completely like if they were in Australia that makes sense, but they weren't. So these are freaks, but and there's no guarantees on them, but I brought them. If you don't like baseball, please take one of those and that'll make the day a little better, okay? And that'll be an experiment for you. Okay. Let's talk a little bit about the history of baseball cards. You know, baseball is very interesting because it's one of our oldest sports. This dates back to about the Civil War time, more or less, is when baseball was being developed, and the first team that's been continuously in existence, the Cincinnati Reds, go back to around that era. And in baseball cards, they used to have something called cabinet cards. And cabinet cards were pictures of teams. They really weren't baseball cards in the same sense, but they came out about around the time of the Civil War. And then in the later 1800s, baseball cards were started to be made. And does anybody know where were baseball cards found? Where would you find the baseball cards? Anybody know?
Tobacco.
Tobacco, yes.
Tobacco shop.
So they had like Allen and Ginter and others did the old tobacco cards, and but then confections did too, and so there were various confections. And the golden age of baseball cards is said to be 1909 to 1915. And I'm going to go through some of these cards later, and you're welcome to come up. I really kind of, just look at them when we're done if you're interested. But I brought a couple. See these cards here? These date back to 1909. This is how they looked when they were in the cigarettes. They're smaller than today's. These are Piedmonts. Piedmont cigarette. It says the cigarette of quality. So that's what you know about these. So these date back, and there was a Hannes Wagner card that you probably know of that's pretty famous. That Hannes Wagner card sold at an auction for $3,120,000. It's the same. These are called. Let's see, T206. It's the same kind of card, except it's a Hannes Wagner. And there's very few Hannes Wagners because he didn't like tobacco, and I think he didn't want his image to be used, and there were other reasons. There aren't very many in existence. So that was the golden era. You know, I won't get too much into the history. It was kind of off and on. But the real interesting thing happened to me in 1952. There was a guy by the name of Cy Berger, and he lived in Brooklyn. And he worked for Topps. And Topps baseball cards are the main baseball cards. And they started in 1951 technically because they made cards that looked like playing cards, you know. And they were called red backs and blue backs. But it wasn't until 1952 that the first real baseball cards were made. This is in 1952. And the 1952 cards are really very pretty. They're bigger than today's cards, but they have on the back all the biographical information and a little story about the player. These are pretty valuable, the little ones. I mean, the commons are very valuable. A 1952 of this era, of this 1952 Mickey Mantle recently sold for $2,880,000. And so what I would tell you, all of you, is that, and this is just 1952 cards, it's not going back to 1909. The thing about these 1952 cards is that strikes me as so funny is this is the first year that it was, you know, that they're really made in this way, and Topps had a bunch left over, mostly the last series. And so Topps tried to figure out what in the heck do we do with these? And they didn't think that maybe we could just keep them or whatever. So the Topps company dumped into the Atlantic Ocean 300 to 500 cases of these cards. And no environmental concern or anything, but it's caused the value to go up astronomically. And so anyway, these cards are very valuable. A lot of these cards are valuable because people's parents threw their cards out, you know, through the years and all that. It's all supply and demand. Very interesting. So anyway, since Topps, there's been Fleer, Donruss, Pacific. Upper Deck became very famous. Upper Deck came out in 1989, and their first card was Ken Griffey Jr.'s rookie card, and that's a very valuable one. I have one of those here. Let me tell you a few stories about collecting as it relates to what I remember as a kid. When I was young, well, let's go back. I'm going to talk a little bit about my age, but we go back to 1960. And we had relatives down in Long Beach, and I remember visiting the relatives. And what was funny is in those days, and maybe some of you had this experience, they had a truck that would go up and down the residential streets, and it would play music. And it was an attractive nuisance of the greatest level, because the kids just loved these trucks, you know. The trucks would carry bread, bakery items, and they would carry fudgesicles and popsicles and that kind of thing, and baseball cards. And so they would play their music. All the kids would come out the doors of the residences in the neighborhood, and they would buy their things. And in those days, you could buy 5 cards for 5 cents. It was a nickel for, and then today those cards can be worth a lot more. It depends upon their condition, but it could be worth several thousand. So it's just very interesting. And my sisters claimed this, that what we would do, so there are 3 boys in my family, we'd all collect baseball cards. We'd open the cards, we weren't interested in the gum. The cards came with gum. So this is an example. They would look like this. This is actually a 1986 pack, unopened. But they would look like this, and my sister said that we would keep the cards and sell them the gum for 5 cents. So that sounds like fraud, but you know, the statute of limitations has passed, so I'm not going to worry about it right now. And I think it's too late to make a claim. So the bad news for me was when I was in college, and most of us are fairly feeling poor when we're in college. My brother got a hold of a couple of my boxes back at home, which was Roseburg, and I was going to school in Corvallis, and there was a guy who was collecting cards, and so he had us over for dinner, and I ended up selling a couple boxes for like a couple $100 or something, which to me was a lot of money then, but it was a fraction of what they were worth. But the good news is that one of my most valuable boxes he didn't take from home and bring to this guy. So anyway, those are some of my stories. Now, let's talk about how baseball cards are sold. Frequently they're sold in boxes like this. You might see these at Fred Meyer or something. These are called blaster boxes. Sometimes they're more in a larger box. This is a 36 count box from 1990. This was a very good set in terms of value. Yeah, in the old days, these were called wax packs because it's kind of a waxy thing. And today, they look more like this. Most of the packs look more like this.
Do they still come with gum?
Good question. Generally, they do not. They do not. There was a gimmick, I think it was called Bazooka baseball cards that came out not too long ago, but they discontinued the gum somewhat. And the gum is kind of funny because you can open these old wax packs, and the gum sometimes, if you got a valuable card, the worst thing is that it's right next to the gum, and then so everything's like coins, you know, it's graded and conditioned, and so you wouldn't want that. But now that you asked, I'd like for everyone to get at least one pack of baseball cards. And maybe you'll get something good out of this. So, let's see how we can best do this. I don't want necessarily everybody to worry about something being handled. I haven't touched these for a long time. So you can take one of these leaf ones. These are a little more valuable. But these have gum in them.
Is it still bubble gum?
Yeah. So, and there's a special prize if anybody chews it. Actually, don't please, because this gum is 35 years old, so it's probably not that good.
Are you sure the gum's still in there?
Well, you'll have to check. But if everyone would everyone actually do me a favor and just grab a pack, and then you can. I'd like for everyone to open one.
Oh, I was going to say, why don't you go get one? I'll get one for you.
Now, if there's nothing that you're going to do with it, this is just for the experience. You know, if you know a kid or something that you can give to, a kid might appreciate them or something. Oh yeah. And there could be. See, the thing about baseball cards is they're randomly inserted. It's a little bit like gambling. You never know what you're going to find inside.
Gum or no gum?
And let me tell you about some of the things that you could find inside. So beginning in about, let's see if I have this date right, I think it was around 1995 or so,
What, bubble gum?
they
Or the newer
began
one?
inserting in packs game used. Game used means that there's part of somebody's jersey or some such thing on special cards. So this is a Joe DiMaggio. This is part of Joe DiMaggio's uniform. If any of you know anything about baseball, he was one of the greatest players of all time, known for his 56 game hitting streak.
So these are the equivalent of saints' relics for the heathens.
Yeah, yeah, relics. So you know, as I told you, some people invest in cards like it was the stock market or something, right? And you can do it that way. And the value of cards are determined by Beckett's. So this is a Beckett's magazine. It's a catalog that tells you prices. This will have more current prices. There are bigger volumes like this that will have more of the cards in them. And so I hope everybody's enjoying opening those. This is a rack pack. This is where you can actually see some of the cards. It's not wrapped, it's in clear plastic. These have been sold since at least the 60s, because I remember 1962 going to Newberry's in Roseburg, and they had these things hanging up at the store. And the advantage is you could see some of the players and see which ones you want. Another thing is, back in the day, when you bought Post cereal, on the backs they had baseball cards, but you had to use your scissors to cut them out. And those are still very valuable. I think the years that they did that, at least I have cards from 61, 62, and 63. So this is a 1961 Hank Bauer that you could take a look at.
The Leaf set are the 90s, right?
That one is 1990 Leaf. That company is no longer in existence, but that was a good year. There's actually, there were about 4 companies producing cards in that year, and this was the best version. So in other words, the most valuable of the cards produced.
So in that box, if we all have puzzle pieces, would we be able to put together a puzzle?
Yes.
Wow.
Yeah, wouldn't that be cool?
Yeah.
So there's a reason for the puzzle. There's been litigation between the companies over the years, and Topps, as I told you, is the main company, has tried to keep the other ones from making cards, like Fleer and Donruss and so on. There's been a lot of litigation. Bowman was another company. And the way I think the court settled it is only Topps would be allowed to sell the gum. Where are we at?
We're good.
Okay, only Topps would be allowed to sell the gum with the cards, but the other companies could put out their cards. And then, so they did gimmicks. That company did puzzles, and others did other things instead of having gum.
Coins, buttons, stickers.
Yeah, buttons, stickers, kind of fun things, some fun things. And some of those are pretty valuable still. So let me go through, I just want one other topic. You know, I don't have to tell you that I like baseball. I think it's a great sport, and I know that a lot of people have headed towards other areas like football and, you know, basketball and all that. But baseball has a tradition like no other sport. And one of the areas of baseball that I really like is college baseball. And if you follow here in this state, to me, I've really enjoyed following Oregon State baseball. And if you follow that, the reason is that since 2006, then 2007, and then in 2018, Oregon State won the national championship. And that's so significant because there are 300 teams, roughly, that are competing to win a national championship. So think in the major leagues, there's 30 teams. So you think of the odds, it's still really hard to win a World Series with 30 teams. 300 teams, Oregon State has won it 3 times in the last 13, 14 years. That's incredible. And and Oregon State, when they won the first one in 2006, was the first team to do that in 40 years. First northern team. See, almost always it would be like Texas or LSU or USC. Somebody where they could play baseball easily, you know, because the season begins in February. And so anyway, the tie-in is I have about 150 Oregon State baseball cards of former Oregon State players, and they're kind of fun to play. And Oregon State had a player who was picked #1 in the draft, which means you have thousands and thousands of players drafted. And Adley Rutschman, after the 2018 season, was the first player drafted. And I have a card of him that you can look at. And
He was the catcher, right?
yeah, catcher.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
So
where
that's
did-
it.
where
Yes.
did he end up?
Question.
Kathy, did you get into collecting because of him, or did you collect before?
I had never collected until we got married. And when we were young and had all the girls at home, especially the first 3, because we had a break before Clara, there weren't a lot of places that we were going, and so baseball cards was something we did together for fun. And we would go in the bedroom and lock the door. That got to be a great thing, because every time we went in the bedroom and locked the door, and the kids would say, well, what are you doing? We'd say, well, we're playing baseball cards.
Well, that covered quite a few things, see?
But and sometimes it was true, you know. If anybody collected and kept their cards for nostalgia or has a a child and their cards are still at home, if you want an idea of what the value of your cards are, a place where cards are bought and sold quite a bit is on eBay. And you can look up a card and get a pretty good idea of what the market is. Every now and then you'll see a card that has just a price that's unreal, like it'll say it's worth $100,000 and all the other ones that look just like it say they're worth $4. And so that generally means one of two things. Either the person doesn't know much about the cards or figures there's a sucker born every day, or there is something unique about the card that causes it to have value, just like stamps or coins. If you've collected those, certain cards are short prints, certain cards are error cards, and those sort of things can cause a card to be phenomenally valuable, even though if it was normal, it wouldn't be.
Okay, yep, that's right on. So it was kind of funny because I was talking about the cigarette cards before, and they have these nostalgia cards. This is Kathy and my favorite, I think. It's called Allen and Ginter, but this was what the old cigarette cards were. And these are, what's fun about these cards is that they're mostly baseball cards, but they have other things in it, like farm animals, or dogs, or cats. I mean, you know, you get a baseball card of a cat. I mean, you know, what else could you ask for? I really wouldn't know. Okay, we're going to wrap up pretty soon. I'm going to go through a few of these, and then if you're interested, I have some of these cards up here that are kind of fun to look at, just because, you know, you can look at what they looked at like in 1909, or look at some of these different types of cards is what I tried to do. So I'm going to explain a few of these, and then we'll go from there. This is a Frank Robinson. This is his rookie card. So if you have a star, this guy's in the Hall of Fame. If you have a star and it's his first card, that will have extra value. So this is a Frank Robinson. This is the way that they looked in 1957. 57 was the first year that the standard dimensions were set, 2.5 by 3.5 inches. Before they were bigger or smaller or whatever. That's the standard size. So cards can be autographed now, and they're randomly inserted. You might get one in a box, you might not get any. Last week, Kathy and I just recently opened a box that said the odds were what? 1 in 1,000 something for an autograph, and we got an autograph. It was 1 in 1,000. So this is Bob Feller. Bob Feller, his autograph. He is one of the most famous baseball players ever. He was famed for being so fast. His fastball was just unbelievable for the era that he pitched in. Some cards are what we call die cut. If you can see this, that means that they're not exactly square, right? They're die cut means that it's not like that, that they're indented and so on. This is a Mike Trout. Mike Trout is the most valuable current player playing, so Mike Trout cards tend to be fairly valuable.
Slightly irregular like the rest of us?
Yeah, yeah.
Those were really common in Pacific and Score, and I don't think either of those companies are manufacturing cards anymore. But
So I told you that Upper Deck was really famous for baseball cards for a while. They don't make baseball cards anymore. They make Goodwin champions, and so randomly there are some baseball players. But anyway, many of you remember Michael Phelps, the Olympic swimmer. So this is a game used. This must be part of his swimsuit. I don't know if I want part of his swimsuit, but anyway, it's attached to the card. That's from Goodwin, which is Upper Deck company. Ted Williams. Ted Williams was just an unbelievable baseball player. He had eyesight that hardly anybody on this planet has ever had. And he served about 6 years in the service, otherwise he would have broken a lot more records. But this is a 1954 card, I think, and Ted Williams, pretty valuable back in those days. These were bigger until 1957. let's see, I mentioned Ken Griffey, his card, this is his rookie card. And when you look at this, there are grading services. So this says 8.5. All cards are graded from 1 to 10, 10 being like mint. We call that mint. So this is an 8.5 graded. And this one's 9.5. Many of you remember Roger Maris was very famous for beating Babe Ruth's record of home runs in 1961 when he hit 61 home runs. So this is part of a game used for Roger Maris. And let's see if there's anything else. While I was singing the praises of my Beavers, one of their players in the major leagues, Michael Conforto, plays for the Mets. This is kind of a neat card. This is his rookie card, but not only is his rookie card, some cards tell you how many they made. So they'll say like, you know, number 5 of 500 issued or something like that. What's crazy about this card, which makes it very valuable, is they only made 5 of these cards. So this is number 3 of 5. So Michael Conforto from Oregon State. Got a Stan Musial. Oh, my kids always love it when they do these things. My daughter, number 2 daughter, Katie, majored in college in Japanese, and her minor was Korean. She's very bright, and she's really a neat kid. But she spent some time in Japan, and if you know, baseball is big in Japan. They borrowed that sport from the U.S., and truly baseball is a worldwide sport. It's played in many, many countries, but it's huge in Japan. And when she was in Japan, she bought me a pack or 2 of baseball cards. And so all this is in, well, it's all in Japanese. So, you know, the back where they just, you know, have the descriptions of everything, it's all Japanese. And this appears to be a chrome type card. So, any final questions? Any?
Do you do more trading, or are you one who's looking for particular things and they're going to purchase them directly, either at memorabilia shops or?
Yeah, that's a good question. So they are called trading cards sometimes, and in the old days, you know, this is where the unscrupulous person would get, you know, the common cards and trade for a Mickey Mantle or something. I mean, Mickey Mantle tends to be the epitome, I mean, you know, the top of the line for cards. But I do very little trading, but as a kid I did. And my joy, what I really like, is there's a shop in Newport. There's a young guy there who sells old cards, but he sells them at about 1/5 of the price that some other shops sell. And so I always like a bargain, and it's kind of fun to just go in there and buy up some old stuff. You never know what they're going to get in. There's another shop in Eugene that's more expensive for old stuff, but it's very reasonable for buying new material, new boxes and stuff like that. In the old days, around 1992, there was a flourishing of shops, and they were all over. I was from Roseburg, and there were like 2 or 3 shops in Roseburg carrying them and all that. And that era is not here anymore. But right now, cards are fairly astronomical in value right now. For some reason, you know, it's like a high stock market. And, you know, Michael Jordan, there's cards for other sports like basketball, Michael Jordan cards and stuff. Those are just really, you know, just cards that don't look so much selling for thousands and stuff like that. And there's a certain amount of that going on. So, yeah.
Jerry, some years ago, there were boxes at the bookstore at the Biscuit Building.
Yeah.
Did you buy some of those?
I did. I would go down and look up. See, I'd use this Beckett's, and I remember going down there, and most of them were not particularly valuable, but they had Darryl Strawberry rookie cards. I'd look up, you know, and find out where there would be a good value and purchase some of those. Yeah.
It was Ted's collection. He was quite a baseball fan.
Yeah, he was. He had some nice cards.
I got a Bobby Cox for you here.
Ah!
I'm probably the only one here that was buying baseball cards before Jerry. In the 1950s, I walked this elementary school past a little store that had penny candy and Topps baseball cards. And you had a nickel, you went in and you bought a root beer barrel or a stick of licorice and a baseball card.
And I appreciate it. He brought in for me Frank Malzoni autograph, right?
Right.
Very nice, very nice. Okay, I still work for Lincoln County, so I have to go back, and I've got 2 meetings at 1 o'clock. But if you would like, if you're interested, take a quick look at some of these cards. And thank you very much for being a good audience. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.